Welcome back! Let's check how our farm is doing. Over the winter, we grew plenty of cactus fruits. The sheep produced a few pallets of wool. We also got almost 3 pallets of eggs. And we even got a few eucalyptus, a couple of cypress, and our first bonsai tree. But we have no time to waste. So I hopped into the Volvo tractor, attached the flatbed trailer, and started loading all the prickly pear cactus onto it. Sold the first load of them for $18,383, and the second one for another $17,000. All the wool and eggs brought in another $25,000, and lastly loaded all the eucalyptus and the cypress onto the trailer. Put some straps on. The bonsai didn't fit, so I will have to make a second run. But this thing should be worth a fortune as it took a full year to grow. The eucalyptus and cypress sold for over $40,000, and the bonsai brought in another $13,000. Man, these things are worth a fortune, but they do take a while to grow though. A full year of work for a single bonsai tree. We made over $120,000 from all the produce, so I decided to fix up our storage situation, as now this is a complete mess, implements just laying everywhere. I first moved all the equipment out of the way, sold all the stuff we no longer use, demolished the old shed and the house, and started making a nice level area that we could work with. We spent about $15,000 just to make this area for ourselves. Spent $25,000 on a new, nicer house that has everything we need for survival. I also put it on top of the dune so we could look over the whole farm, and built a bunch of storage down below on the level area. It cost about $40,000 to build all of this storage area, and a couple of grand more to lay rock tiles. This should be enough storage for a while, but we still had some cash, so I decided to modernise our machinery a little bit so we could expand faster. Ran to the dealer, and worked out an awesome deal for this John Deere 40 series. The 4040 model, to be precise. It has no cabin, but we don't really need it anyways. But it is a 112 horsepower tractor for just $37,800. I bought it, spent another $7,500 for a new planter to go with it, and also bought a couple of bags of seeds for $315 a pop. Man, we are finally getting into the proper farming machinery. I attached the planter, loaded in some seeds, and went back home. I decided to experiment with some crops again this year, planted the whole field with sugar beet. Maybe that is the crop that will make us rich. It took just an hour to plant the whole field, but we still need to spray some herbicide over the wheat field today before the crops grow too tall, and also cultivate the old sunflower field to prepare the soil for planting. So I hopped back into the Volvo, attached the sprayer, but unfortunately we are out of herbicide. So I hopped into the T16, attached the flatbed, and went to the store. Bought 3 barrels of herbicide for $300 each, and 3 pallets of liquid fertilizer for $400 each. We were left with just $35 to our name again. Loaded all the barrels onto the flatbed, put some straps on, and went back home. Filled up the sprayer with herbicide, and sprayed it over the wheat field. Then spread some liquid fertilizer as well. Parked the sprayer, loaded all the supplies into the shed to cover it from the direct sunlight, climbed into the John Deere, and started preparing the sunflower field for the planting. The next morning I spread the field with some fertilizer, then with some lime, and lastly planted corn in it. All the fields are sown and growing. I came back to the yard and got a pleasant surprise. The greenhouses finally produced some vegetables. We got some garlic, chili, and some strawberries, so I loaded them all onto the flatbed trailer and took it to the store. It sold for over $11,000. We also produced our second bonsai tree, so I loaded it onto the flatbed trailer and sold it off for another $13.4K. But when I came back to the farm, I got some interesting ideas. I think it's smart to try and grow some fruit trees. We got very limited level space in the desert where we can actually make fields. But we can grow some grapes, peaches, apples and so on virtually on any terrain. Like this hill in between the farm and the dealer. It is a perfect place for such endeavour. I opened the store and started shopping for some fruit trees. Found this beautiful peach plantation for just $17,000. So I bought one and ran to check it out. The trees are fully grown, so all we need is some water and some compost, and in turn we get some peaches. The question is, where the heck do we get compost from? I quickly found out that to get compost we need this composter that costs $10,000. It can take in some of the vegetables, also straw and hay, and make a compost out of it. But we have no money to build it now. So I brought in a full tank of water to prevent the trees from dying. Our new investment will have to wait for now, as we have no money to afford the composter. So I attached the mower and started cutting all the grass to hopefully make some money for the composter and also make some hay for the compost making itself. It took the whole day to cut the whole field, so I parked the tractor in the shed and went inside to get some rest. The next morning I loaded all the produce onto the flatbed trailer to hopefully afford a tedder and a composter. All the wool, eggs, tomatoes and prickly pear cactus sold for almost $25,000. It was enough to buy this 8.9 metre wide tedder for $16,500, and even had enough cash to buy the composter for the $10,000. Attached the tedder and continued on with the grass work. The first forage wagon quickly filled up, so I took it to the composter and loaded it full. The composter takes in 20 litres of hay and makes 20 litres of compost. We should have the first few bits of compost around tomorrow morning. I decided to sell the rest of the hay as we need some extra cash. I sold 3 full wagons for around $2,200 each, and kept what's left for future compost production. Parked the forage wagon back in the shed, hopped into the Volvo tractor, attached the sprayer, spread the sugar beet and cornfield with fertiliser first, then with some herbicide. The next morning, as a first thing, I went off to check up on the composter. We had 1 full bag of compost. I carefully picked the bag up with the skid steer and loaded it straight into the peachery. Soon we should have some peaches. Parked the skid steer back in the shed, attached the water tank onto the John Deere, and used it to bring some water for the sheep. The sheep still have plenty of grass bales from last year. The chickens have almost 4,000 litres of feed as well. The nursery needs some solid fertiliser though. So I loaded all the produce onto the flatbed trailer and sold it for almost $23,000. I immediately used the money to buy 4 pallets of solid fertiliser for $1,920 each, that I loaded straight into the nursery. All the animals and orchids are taken care of. We can go and make some new fields. So I hopped into the John Deere and went off to the dealer. Spent $17,000 on a massive 1.6 metre wide plough, attached it onto the John Deere and started making some new fields. It took a full month, but we made 2 new massive fields. We stopped ploughing only because all the wheat are ripe and ready for harvest. But first, I hopped into the T16 and went out to check if we got our first peaches. We got our first 2 boxes of peaches. I loaded them on the trailer and took it to the store. Sold it for $2,400. Not a bad profit, considering they only require water and compost to grow. I drove back home, attached the grain trailer to the front of the T16 and the other one to the back, parked it beside the wheat field and started the harvest. But both of the trailers quickly filled up, so I brought it to the chicken coop and loaded as much of it inside the feeding pans as possible, unloaded the harvester bunker in the trailer and continued on with the last few bits of the harvest. We got over 5,500 litres of wheat left. Probably a good idea to buy some more chickens. We just need to get a few extra grand to afford it. I parked the harvester back in the shed and hopped into the John Deere, loaded all the leftover hay into the composter. We got plenty of compost for some more fruit trees. We just need some cash to buy them. Luckily, some eucalyptus grew again, and we also got some farm produce. I loaded all the wool, eggs and the eucalyptus on the flatbed trailer and sold it at the market for around $25,000. It was enough money to buy a second chicken coop for $9 grand. I also demolished the old greenhouses in the yard. Also spent almost $20 grand on a red berry plantation. Used up what's left to buy 108 chickens for $5,940. And another $6 for the rooster, to keep them all in check. Loaded all the wheat into the new chicken coop, loaded in some water into the new plantation, and split all the compost between the plantations. I hope to one day cover this whole hill with different kinds of fruit trees and bushes that grow some berries. But we need at least a few $100,000, or even millions, to do so. I parked the skid steer back in the shed. We got some field prep to do. We need to collect all this straw and prepare the soil for seeding. Also spread some lime over the new field, and maybe even cut the grass if we have any extra time. So I hopped into the John Deere and started off clearing the to-do list by windrowing all the straw into some nice little rows for easier collecting. Loaded one forage wagon of straw into the composter and sold the rest at the market for around $4,000. It was enough to buy 6 pallets of lime for $450 each, and a few bags of fertiliser. The next morning I sprayed it all over the new fields. Then planted both of them with barley. We have spent 2 full months working in the fields, but neither the sugar beets nor the corn are yet ready for harvest. So I loaded some water into the sheep barn and ran off to the mountains to check up on the fruit trees. We got a couple of boxes of peaches, also a few boxes of red berries, and a whole lot of compost. So I ran back to the yard, hopped into the cozy T16, loaded all of the fruits and berries onto it, and took it to the market. All of them sold for a mind-boggling $23,000. The investment strategy was definitely correct. We should recoup all the money from the fruit trees in just a couple of years. I also sold off all the cactus fruits for an extra $25,000. I would like to invest some more into the fruit trees, but we need to get a harvester for the sugar beets. So I ran off to the dealer to check up on the prices. But all the harvesters turned out to be insanely expensive. The cheapest one starts at around $300,000. Luckily, we got some older, more basic machines for more affordable prices, like this electric one for $8,000, or this old simple one that uses illegal immigrant labour to pick all the sugar beets for just $22,400. I decided to splurge and bought the one for $22,400, as I am planning to grow some sugar beet in the future as well. I drove it back to the farm and just parked in the shed for now. All the crops were taken care of, and all the animals were fed and happy. So I went inside to get some rest. I woke up nice and early the next morning. At 7 a.m, I was out of the house already. The corn was all ready for harvest, the sugar beet as well. The crew was already waiting for me in the truck. So I hopped in, extended the conveyor, and we started picking all the sugar beets. By we, I mean they start picking all the sugar beets, while I chill in the truck all nice and cozy, listening to some bangers. The Igors worked insanely fast. It took just a mere couple of hours to harvest the whole field. I parked the truck back in the shed and leave it be until the next harvest, then immediately hopped into the combine and started the corn harvest. The first trailers quickly filled up though, so I took it to the store and sold for around $5,000, then continued on with the harvest. It took the whole day to finish up the harvest. I loaded the last few bits of corn into the trailers, parked the combine back in the shed. We need a silos, so I opened the store and started looking for one. I spent $12,000 on this 30-ton one, loaded all the corn into it, and went inside to get some rest. The next morning, I decided to start the day off by selling all the sugar beets. I hopped into the skid steer and started loading all the pallets onto the flatbed trailer. Sold the first load for $29,596, and the second one for another $21,000. Man, from this field alone we generated almost $50,000 of profit. That's just insane. We should probably plant some more of it next year. I think it's even more profitable than the potatoes that we planted the year before. I also sold off the eucalyptus and cypress saplings for $20,000. All the wool, eggs, peaches and berries for another $60,000, and all the prickly pear cactus for $15,000. In total, we increased our bank balance to $171,833. I decided to first use the money to eliminate our biggest hassle. Started removing all the sand from the dune separating our farm from the dealer. It cost almost $20,000 to dig out this huge trench, so we wouldn't need to climb the dune every time we went to the dealer. We still had over $155,000 left to our name, so I decided to buy some necessary equipment first. Spent $12,550 on a simple class round baler. It can only make 125cm bales, but that's still better than the pushable one. Spent another $18,000 on a 4.3 metre mower. That's twice as big as the old one. Also spent $19,500 on a proper windrower. Then checked the used machinery section. Wait, we got a Mercedes-Benz Unimog for just 11 grand. What's wrong with it? It has no engine or something? It's 3 years old. It seems to be alright. Let's just get it. We can use it as a replacement for the T16. Why the heck was it so cheap? It seems to be driving alright. We still had some money left, so I decided to plant some more fruit trees. Built a blueberry plantation, an apple plantation, and 2 more cherry plantations. We are getting closer and closer to covering the whole mountain with fruit trees and berry bushes. I loaded some water into them all, and also tested the Unimog at the same time. Also loaded in a bunch of compost. Everything is set for the winter. The chickens have plenty of food. We just need to make some more grass bales for the sheep. So I hopped into the John Deere, attached the new mower, and started cutting all the grass. But by the time we finished, we were almost out of fuel, so I bought a couple canisters of diesel for $75 each, loaded them into the tractor, got almost a full tank, but immediately continued on with the grass work by windrowing all the grass, and the next morning made it all into some nice bales. We have made 17 bales. They are only 125 centimetres, but still a lot for our farm size. I went back to the yard, but we have a huge problem. Not that long ago we spent tens of thousands on the new sheds, and they are all, once again, full. We got a bunch of old machinery though. I sold off all the old machinery that we no longer use, like the old plough, the tiny planter, and so on. I even sold the T16 as we got the Unimog now. We freed up some space, but we will probably need to expand the storage again soon. Parked all the new machinery inside the sheds, and drove off to the dealer. Spent $600 on a bale fork for the skid steer, and upgraded our flatbed trailer to this bigger one that cost 12 grand. Loaded in all the grass bales onto the trailer. Loaded in 5 bales into the sheep feeding pans, and sold the rest in the market for an extra 8 grand. We have got only a couple of jobs for the whole winter. Prepare the harvested fields for planting in March. And if we have some free time, make some new ones. We also need to spray some herbicide over the barley, but spraying in winter can screw up the machinery. So I hopped back into the John Deere, attached the cultivator, and began the work. Then attached the plough, and started making some fields. I've made just this single field over the winter. Was just too lazy to make any more. You know how it goes. But I have also combined the 2 fields that we made at the very start into this massive one that is now probably the biggest one. I parked the tractor back in the shed and went out to check up on the farm to see how they held up while I was making the new field. The sheep still have plenty of food and water, produced 5.5 pallets of wool. The chickens, on the other hand, one of the coops has just 5 litres of food left in it. We will have to buy some to last until the harvest time. They produced about 3 pallets of eggs each. We also grew a couple of eucalyptus and a bonsai tree. Ran to check the fruit trees next. The results were very different in between the plantations. Like, we produced about 10 pallets of blueberries. Same goes for red berries, but got only about half of that of cherries. I would like to go straight to planting, but we got no cedar and no cash to buy one. So I climbed into the Unimog and started loading all the berries onto it. Sold off all the red berries, blueberries and cherries first for 60 grand. Pears and peaches brought it another 17 grand. All the eggs, wool and tree saplings brought in another 42 grand. And lastly, all the prickly pear cactus got us another 18 grand. We got this huge sum of money. Over $145,000. Yet, it was barely enough to get this new 6-metre wide planter for $37,000. Plus, I had to buy a more powerful tractor. So I bought this JCB Fast Track 2000 with 150 horsepower for $64,300. Also spent a couple thousand on weight and a few grand on some fertiliser and seeds. Also traded in our old sprayer for this brand new 24-metre wide Hardy Mega that cost us just over 30 grand. But I had a ton of work that had to be done immediately. So I hopped straight into the JCB, attached the front weight, attached the planter, loaded in some seeds and fertiliser. We have 3 massive fields that we need to fully plant by the end of April. Luckily, the JCB has the GPS, so that makes it way easier. But I still worked the whole day and the whole night to get it finished in time. By the time we finished planting, it was already the middle of April, but we did it. Planted it all. We planted 1 field with sugar beets, 1 field green beans, the new one with soybeans. We also have 2 fields of barley that we planted in September, and a grass field. We have spent only 3 years in this desert. If you liked the video, consider hitting the like button, subscribe if you want to see more, and leave a comment on what you want to see next. See you in the next one!